We're going to do Fireside with Eli. Eli, let's keep it simple. Why don't you introduce yourself and give us a bit of your background?
All right, I'm Eli. I'm head of technical alliances at Docker now. In terms of background, I grew up over here in Canada. Went to a school not far from here. My first job out of school was I worked for a company. I moved to the United States and worked for a few large technology companies, Amazon and Microsoft being a few. Moved back to Toronto about 2011, quite a while ago. Have actually interacted in the startup community over here quite a bit. Most recently, I've been with a company called Pivotal, and then after Pivotal got acquired, went and helped start a company called Atomic Jar, which got acquired by Docker.
Great. So successful founder with an exit, what everyone supposedly dreams of. But before we get to Atomic Jar, I want to just understand a bit how you ended up there. First of all, everyone talks about the brain drain. You left. You worked for these two of these behemoth tech companies. Why move back to Canada?
We were living back in Seattle, and my wife and I got married, and we were thinking about where do we want to raise our kids. And Canada looked like a very attractive place to come back to. So at the time, it wasn't a trivial choice. I think it's a lot easier of a choice now, given all the amazing companies over here now. At the time, it was a scary choice to a certain degree, because when I look back at some of my classmates, some of the more ambitious ones have ended up in the United States. And when I would email companies over here and I would like, hey, interested coming back, most of the established companies would not reply because I was not an interesting person for them. But interestingly, at that time, the startup community was already getting started and getting going, and reaching out to the startup community, even in a cold email, resulted in some amazing outcomes. People just introduced me to a whole network of companies who were building over here, and I came back for a week at a time, and I had meetings all the way through. So it's really the startup community that welcomed me here, and a startup community that I helped contribute to once I got here.
And you ended up at Pivotal. Just quick show of hands. Who here has heard of Pivotal? Put up your hands if you've heard of them. Okay, so a few people, about 15%. Why don't you describe what Pivotal is? And it's one of it. I think it's been a part of building this ecosystem. So explain where you ended up, what role you did, and what made it successful.
So Pivotal was an interesting company. Pivotal did a couple of things very differently. It was both a software company, so we sold software for a platform for building applications in the cloud. And we also had a very successful services arm, which actually was called Pivotal Labs. Pivotal Labs did software development very differently. And they taught how to do pair programming. They taught how to do really concentrate on the product. And when Pivotal went to market, Pivotal went to companies. Pivotal was founded at the time where software was eating the world. And many companies needed both the skill set of how to go and execute on building new products, and also a platform to host them at. So Pivotal was a company around that time that helped companies to go through the journey. I joined Pivotal through an acquisition. They bought a Canadian company called Extreme Labs over here in Toronto, 69 Yonge Street, I believe that was the address of us. And I joined first in product, and what became very clear is that Pivotal was going on a cloud journey. I happen to have been at a public cloud provider. I've been at Amazon and one of the early engineers in Amazon. And it was interesting for Pivotal to try and figure out, how do we fit into this world? How do we go and partner? How do we go and build with the public cloud providers? And I started doing more of an alliance role, really trying to put together both, the interests of each individual companies, and how do we go and build business together, and how do we go and do something that is beneficial for both organizations.
So you're Pivotal, they get acquired. I think they go public, then they get acquired. you have a role you're doing pretty well. Why look at leaving?
So we did get acquired. We get acquired by VMware as an organization. It was becoming clear to me. So I was looking at this. I was looking at my career journey. I've done a lot of big companies, big tech. It was clear to me that getting another big tech name on my resume would not help. I mean, I've done many companies before, and it's like, okay, so do another one. And I was looking at this, and I'm like, okay, so I'm doing well. I'm on a journey. What will I do when I'm done with that journey? Like, another 5, 10 years or 15 years, I'll do those roles, whatever those roles are. And I'm like, I'm not very good at gardening. Once I'm done, I'm not going to go and garden. I'm going to go and do something on my own. I'm like, So I'm going to wait for 15 years until I go and do something on my own, as opposed to, like, as I was progressing in my career, I wasn't changing my lifestyle. Like, I mean, I was, getting paid a little bit more, but I wasn't spending a whole bunch more. I'm like, so I'm putting away money. I don't have to do that. I can just take a risk and not put that money away and just go and build something and see what happens. And my family has supported me. I couldn't do it without them, and that's what I did.
I like that you mentioned the family. I think many founders couldn't do it without the right family circumstance. So,
100% agree, and I couldn't have done it without the support of the family.
cool. So you decide, hey, I'm going to look for a company. I'm going to start something. Look for something. You find Atomic Jar. I think we have you up as a co-founder there. As you put in our notes here, that you were a late co-founder. So explain what a late co-founder is, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. So towards the end of my journey at VMware, I was really deep throughout my career. I was very deep at developer first, and really building things for the developer. Really, I started my journey as an engineer. I don't build software for a living anymore, but I can empathize with developers a lot, with the pain of software development a lot. So towards the end of my journey at VMware, I was working on something that ended up being a partnership between VMware and Microsoft on the Spring open source platform, technology. And on this journey, I met Sergey. Sergey had another technology that he was building, which was called test containers, which was getting a ton of adoption in the industry. Sergey left the company, and sooner or later just published, "Hey, I'm starting a company." And the first time I reached out to him was when he raised his seed fund, and I'm like, I would have maybe liked to put a little money, and he's like, "Sorry, can't disclose, not anymore." And we started talking, and along this journey, we kind of really liked working together, and it became clear that to me, it was interesting to go and work with Sergey, and we're like, so what the role could look like. And it became apparent to both of us that the right role for me to join was as a co-founder, because that's the level of impact that I think both of us realized I could make. And then it's just mechanics of how do you make it happen, how do you make the everything else around this just work. And it's not something that's done fairly frequently. People do it. It's something that can be done. You don't have to necessarily be a co-founder that started the company. You can join along the journey, and it's been done many times before.
Cool. I want to break down, there's a lot of wisdom there, or a lot of interesting comments there I want to break down. So first of all, what was the nature of the product in the company before you joined?
So we had an open source framework called test containers, which is used by millions of developers every month, and we are building a commercial backend for that technology. So we are building a company that is based on open source, and we sold Test Containers Cloud, which is a managed backend for that technology to developers.
Okay, so you're an open source dev-focused company. raise the seed from and I think Sergey was based in New York, if I'm correct.
He moved.
He moved to New York, or
He was originally we are an interesting we're a COVID company. So the company was started using Zoom. This is the first round was raised with Sergey he was living in Berlin at the time. With our seed investors being in New York, so Bold Start as a seed investor who backed the company almost like within 24 hours after the first conversation. So they were able to write the check really quickly, even before the company ever existed. And actually, the whole company was remote first. So towards even now, when we sold the company, we were 19 people out of 9 countries. So the whole company was remote first, fully international.
Okay, so they had raised money from, I guess, Bold Start. Sergey, you knew. So this breaks all the rules you'll hear in previous presentations. So,
yeah, totally.
How did you know Sergey? How did you know this was someone that you wanted to work with? How do they feel comfortable bringing you with the co-founder title? And I imagine must have provided a nice option package. So how was this possible? Because everything you hear is your co-founders you should know them for years. You need to know how to work together. The VCs already put money in. They're probably going to go, whoa, what's going on here? We have an ESOP. You're probably going to break the ESOP quite quickly. So tell us how you got comfort, how the company got comfort, how you got around, got the VCs to get comfort.
I mean, 10,000 foot, it's a risk for everyone. A company is a risk to begin with. Everyone felt I was taking a risk, the VCs were taking a risk, Sergey was taking a risk. We spent a lot of time together chatting and realizing that our values were very similar. Our views on how we were interested in building the company were interested, and they were tested along the way many, many times on the journey. They were, lots of different points in the journey to question whether, the right people, the right choices, and everything else. And, we stick together. We were able to build a company, and we were able to persevere through this journey. And up until the acquisition, and even now as we work together at Docker.
Okay, so one more question about the position, and I want to get into actual company. So you joined as a co-founder. How do you know what your responsibilities were, your title going to be? This is an existing company with some momentum already.
So it's really hard. What the title and what responsibilities, you figure it out along the way. The reality is that everything is the responsibility, and it's how between the co-founders you break it. You break the responsibility, who takes what, and this could change any day, right? And it's what's broken needs to be fixed, and a lot of things are broken all the time. So whatever makes sense at a particular point of time, that's what.
Can you give us an example?
Lots of examples along
Just
the
one.
journey.
Let's give us one.
Along the journey, it became clear to us that, my personal take on things is a lot more B2B. Sergey is very much B2C. He's very much the life and blood of a developer. And we're like, okay, we're going on a B2C route. We're going that direction. Sergey took on product and engineering. That was what he was doing. And I'm like, okay, the way I can provide value, I'll take on everything else. And that's what we did, right? So that's and then we also okay, other areas, Sergey is very good at, he's very good at marketing, right? And to developers, awesome, he will take that. We all the way through, we tried and organized ourselves in interesting ways.
Cool. Want to talk a bit about the company. You're selling to developers, DevOps or dev tools. Very popular category. It seems to be challenging. You're also doing open source.
Yes.
So let's start with, how do you sell to developers and actually know you have product market fit?
So it's interesting and it's very challenging. Who controls budgets and who controls, selling to developers is really hard because some of them have a credit card, but they can put very small transactions on that credit card, and budgets are controlled by other people, right? And a lot of times in enterprise, budgets are controlled by the ops team, by the IT team. How do you create a product right? That is loved by developers, and this is what we wanted, what we built, and what we wanted to build. But yet, other people would be interested to pay. That was an interesting challenge that we had to navigate. How do we go and not fall into the trap of, creating a super successful open source project and then just starting to charge for it? Some companies do that. We did not want to go down that particular route. We wanted to create a product that was useful for people who are using the open source. And lots of lessons learned along the journey is we are like, okay, so developers use this product, use the open source technology because it allows them to fly under the radar, not to get their IT teams paying attention. It allows them to get productivity without the platform teams knowing. We're like, okay, cool. So that's the open source. How can we provide value? And we're like, oh, so I used to be on a platform team back in the day at a company. And I'm like, if I'm on a platform team and my developers start using a product I did not provide them with, I look bad. Because when my management looks at me, I'm Eli, and I'm a platform team, and then there is Mary who's building features, and Mary is doing well, and Bob building features, and when my management looks at the three of us, they ask, what has Mary done? Mary has built features add value. Bob, features, good, value. Eli, platform. Platform, interesting. Mary and Bob, do you use Eli's platform? And if the answer is a no, then when the layoff does happen, Eli no longer works for the company, right? Because if the platform is not being used by the developers, the platform team does not look particularly good. So the realization came to us is like, okay, so we are building tools for developers, but we need to make it such that platform teams can actually adopt this and bring it to developers and look like heroes. And that was some of the realizations that helped us kind of shape the product the way it has been shaped and go in a particular direction that we've gone.
So you've got developers using it. You're trying to make the platform team look smart or keep their jobs. How do you measure product market fit or traction?
I mean, we had project market fit for sure for our open source project, right? So we clearly had lots of developers using our technology. The way we were looking at product market fit for a commercial product is through all the regular SaaS product market fit metrics. How many people did we have? We looked at the funnel, how many people were coming into the funnel, how many people were getting activated, how many people were actually using the product multiple times, how many people were converting, how many people were actually getting value out of the commercial product that we were building. So for us, project market fit, which was very important, right, and enabled us to have the opportunity, this is the open source part of our business, that was one area that we were concentrating on, or we were building on and trying to enhance. And then on the other hand, we were building a commercial product that is a SaaS platform with a very, I guess, wide surface area of developers who were using it and a funnel of conversion.
Cool. Now I want to get on less exciting stuff, maybe for some of the financing. So you start off with Bold Start, and then you ended up at Docker. Did you raise money in between?
Yes, we raised a round A from Insight Ventures out of New York. We raised $25 million round.
And, you're based in Canada. Did you, how easy was it to raise? Why did you end up with Insight Ventures?
So the whole company, it was a very international company, right? So for us, I'm based in Toronto, but the company was not based in Toronto. The company was a Delaware corporation. We had, as I mentioned, employees in 9 countries. We were very much focused on trying to raise at the best possible terms, trying to go and actually many investors were actually, because we were quite public, because we were custodians of a very popular open source project, we had quite a bit of inbound coming in. And also the particular time that we were in, also as a result of raising our initial round from a well-known investor that put us on the map and ended up having quite a bit of inbound. And the investor that led the round that we found the most interesting to work with was Inside Venture Partners out of New York City.
Cool. So you're well funded. Seems to have some signs of product market fit. Why sell and why to Docker?
So it's interesting. So 10,000 foot, when you look at it and you have inbound where you have companies coming in, you're trying to evaluate, you're trying to put yourself, of course you have personal interests, you have, you try and look at it holistically and you look at this, okay, what happens if we don't sell? What happens if we do? And for us, it was obvious that selling to Docker would accelerate our journey. We had a particular destination we wanted to get to. What was clear is continuing going on our own, quite rewarding from a personal perspective, right? Building a company and so on and so forth. But then you look back and you're like, okay, so we can go and continue building on our own, or we could go and join Docker and accelerate that journey. We don't necessarily have to go and get all of those individual customers ourselves. We can go and work with Docker that actually sells to very similar individuals and does something very, very similar. And it's another product that we can jointly go out and take to market. And that was the reasoning. The reasoning was how long would it take us to get to a particular milestone to be able to raise the next round, right? And obviously, lots of things have happened in the market. And also, what's the alternative? If we go and join Docker, how does it look like? And to us, it was obvious that joining Docker was the right thing to do. And that's, when they called, we answered the call and had a couple of conversations.
Cool. I'm going to ask two more questions because I do want to open it up to the audience. So those conversations, how difficult were they? How easy? Like, did you throw a price in that's like, here, we take it today? Like, how's an acquisition happen?
So there's many parts to an acquisition, right? The price is just one element of that conversation. And the price has to be right, and it has to make sense to everyone involved. And there's many stakeholders, there are investors, employees, everyone around, and so on and so forth. But first and foremost, is there a fit? Can we jive with? Can they jive with us? Do we have similar thoughts about the market? Do we try and approach the things very similarly? Do we have similar ideas of where we want to take this? Those are the first questions. Like, when we go and present, is everyone excited? Are people around the table excited about what can be done? And once you clear that milestone and everyone is interested and people are excited and lots of, smiles around, sure, it gets to the details and everything else. And if that works out, you still have a long process to go of an M&A, right? Which is due diligence and lots of lawyers involved and lots and lots and lots of stress along the journey, having at least 2 jobs at the same time as you're trying to run a company and do the M&A process at the same time. Fascinating, long nights, yes. But yeah.
Okay. Last question before I open the audience. What's changed since acquisition?
So lots of things changed since acquisition, right? So we're now part of a much bigger company, a very successful company, a company that sells to organizations all around the world. But as with any acquisition, they buy a company, but that company is different. And the people who thought about the purchase and who made the purchase are not the rest of the organization. The rest of the organization absorbs a new entity. And it's, you go through a journey because there's lots of joint learning that you go through. Because what was obvious to you as a founder or you as an organization, a lot of other people don't know about your market. and you end up explaining and you end up spending time with people. The process of being acquired, and I've gone through it a couple of times through a couple of companies. It's always a journey where you have to get people on board, get people, you have to go through a real journey. And we're still going through it.
Cool. Can I get a round of applause for Eli? We're gonna open it up to Q&A. What I just ask is, if you have a question, please stand up when you ask it, so it's easier for everyone to know where it's coming from. So, any questions? Can we get a mic down there?
Just very simply, what was the most stressful part of the acquisition for you?
There were so many along the way, stressful parts of the acquisition. The most stressful. I can tell you that the whole process was very, very stressful along the journey. A couple of interesting, points along the journey when we told the team and they reacted well. That was a very meaningful and important part of the process. And then, the process, we were until the last moment, the process was the relief happened when it was all signed, and even when it was all signed, the day it was closed was somewhat of a relief. I turned off my phone. We were on vacation with a family, and then yes, even a few days after, we still had to follow up on a couple of things, minor things. But yes, it's quite a journey.
Hi. It was nice hearing you. My question is, did you approach them or they approached you for acquisition?
So it's always they did approach us. They approached the company. We were fairly public. We were flying. People knew about us. There were multiple people who would have approached us along the journey.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yes.
So, once they approached you, did you go through a formal sales process? Did you hire bankers to try to get other people, or did you just knew this was the right partner?
No bankers were involved.
Okay. I'm sure some people on Wall Street now crying they didn't make their fees.
Quick question. What advice would you give yourself when you were starting Atomic Jar or when you were joining as a co-founder?
I mean, there's so many things that to me, when I reflect on the journey, to me, the learnings are actually, to me, the whole experience was a huge learning exercise, right? What I think I knew coming into the journey and what I've learned along the way, very different things, right? And many things that people tell you are cliches, but in the end of the day, it's all about the folks you started with and whether you're able to stick together through the easy and the tough. And there's lots of tough along the journey, as they say. So, I always thought to myself, would I rather be doing anything else? And the answer to me was not really. I actually enjoy what I'm doing, even if it's tough.
Along the same lines there, so you went from very large organizations to a startup. What was the biggest lesson learned or adjustment you had to make as an individual making that transition?
There were lots. So yes, I was in the reason I was able to get stuff done in larger organizations is I cared about lots of things and tried to act as not a large corporate person through that journey. Well, I had lots of learnings to do. Also, how not to be a corporate person, how to communicate in a way that was appropriate in startups, how to go, and lots of the decisions we make, in corporate, there's lots of no's. Here, no one is going to really tell you no. Just go and do it and see what happens, right? That was a realization that we could do lots of things as long as we execute quickly, as long as we were able to get it out and experiment, no one would tell us one way or another.
Eli, you mentioned that you and Sergey went and sold out to, or you sold to platform teams and tried to make them look like the heroes to the software engineering teams by providing them with tools. What were some of the challenges that you had selling to those platform teams? Was it more based on budget issues? Were there other constraints? Were there some kind of friction or resistance from the developers in adopting those tools?
So for us, interestingly, just talking to them directly would not produce outcomes, right? For us, they would not know us from other people, right? From anybody else. When we would come and talk to them directly, because lots of people have similar pitches. What was interesting for us is that when we would get brought in to those conversations through the developers, and the developer would advocate on our behalf, right? So that's when a lot of magic would happen. So for us, it was interesting to be able to identify the companies where developers were using our technology, and then create a need for the developer to go and talk to the platform team about why they want to adopt more of the commercial product. And that was an interesting pivot, because all of a sudden, the platform team was not getting pitched by random cold calls and so on and so forth. The platform team was getting asked for something by their own engineers, and then they could either say yay or nay, and then we could also go and say, engineers like this tool, maybe we'll go and do tech talk and get more engineers to like this tool. And then it creates a little bit more pressure. So interesting ways of navigating those organizations as opposed to just cold calling. We were using our advantage, which we had, which is the developers, and trying to get in and have a conversation through that medium.
Cool. One last question.
And we're still learning, just to be frank.
So one quick question here. After the acquisition with Docker, I've seen that so far the building has been focused on developers and not the platform teams. Do you think that would change after the acquisition with Docker, or is building focused purely on developers and not the platform teams at all?
I'm not sure I'm following. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, so far with Atomic Jar, I've seen the focus of building the product is towards the devs as opposed to the platform teams, and the developers have been the advocators. Now, after this acquisition, do you think the mindset would be focused towards the platform teams directly, or is it still the developers?
Docker as a company is very much focused on developers first. Docker very much is focused on the inner loop of developers. So what do developers do on their local developer machine, and as they go and iterate on the software. So I do not expect focus to change.
Cool. Can I get a round of applause? Thank you so much.